Welcome back, everyone. President Biden just offered Republicans a deal on stimulus that has a real chance of getting done, and Mitch McConnell just responded. So let's discuss the details in this video. But before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I also have a second channel, so if you could do me a huge favor, click on the link that's in the description of this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to be giving away a stimulus check on that channel just as a thank you for supporting my work. Now, there is a lot of speculation that there could be a fourth round of stimulus checks. At the same time, President Biden promised to increase Social Security benefits through a variety of ways, some of which would lead to an increase of $2,000 per year for some people who are on Social Security. First of all, he plans to pay for this by taxing the rich. He also wants to provide a 20% increase for survivor benefits, a minimum benefit of 125% of the poverty level, which would lead to $2,000 per year in extra benefits for those who are low income. He also promised a 5% bump for people who have been on Social Security for 20 years or more, as well as a larger COLA increase every year, which would lead to bigger benefits across the board. Now, all of this could potentially be included in the second stimulus package this year, the American Families Plan. Currently, Democrats are negotiating the infrastructure plan. Now, although this first one does not include direct payments, it will influence the second stimulus package. If Biden can get this deal done, it's going to be a really good signal that he can also get the second stimulus package done as well. If he can't get it done, it's not going to look good for that second stimulus package. Now, obviously, Biden has two routes. He can do a bipartisan bill with Republicans, which he's currently working on, or he can do a budget reconciliation bill, which does not require a single Republican vote. Now, with Joe Manchin holding the key to a budget reconciliation bill, he is forcing Biden to try and compromise with Republicans, and he just met this week with Senator Capito. Capito on your left is essentially Joe Manchin's right-hand man. She is the other senator from West Virginia. These two work together a lot, and she is trying to get a compromise done with President Biden. Now, the good news is Biden did offer a compromise, and he made them a really good offer on a deal, and Mitch McConnell just responded. And again, if Biden can get this infrastructure stimulus done, it's going to look good to get that second stimulus done, which could include stimulus checks and could include an increase in Social Security benefits. Now, before we discuss the details of the deal and what Mitch McConnell said in response, let's take a look and see what Senator Capito had to say. She gives her thoughts on the Republican point of view on what they want to get done with infrastructure and what their thoughts are on getting this deal done. So let's take a look, see what she had to say. Then we'll discuss Joe Biden's offer for a deal and exactly what Mitch McConnell said in response.
Now for more on Senate Republicans' counter-offer to President Biden on infrastructure. Joining us from West Virginia, the lead Republican negotiator, Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Senator, great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you, Shannon. Good to be on. Thanks.
So let me ask you this. Where do we stand with negotiations this morning? I know you've been talking with the president. There's been some public speculation about who's actually calling the shots. Even Senator Mark Warner, Democrat, saying, I've had my calls returned quickly. I'm talking with the legislative team, but even I'm not really sure who's making the decisions. What's your impression and where do things stand this morning?
Well, I think the president's making the decisions. And when we went to the Oval Office, 6 of us, to talk about a bipartisan infrastructure package, the president basically tasked us to come back with something close to $1 trillion in the areas in the scope that we as Republicans feel constitutes infrastructure. Also, we could spread it over an 8-year period of time, and that's exactly what we've done. And we've got a great basis for this because we just passed a surface transportation bill unanimously out of my committee with Senator Carper as the chairman. And so I think we're building those blocks towards a really good, solid infrastructure package that has bipartisan support. So we're responding to what the president has said. He told me on the phone just day before yesterday, let's get this done. And I think that means that his heart is in this. We have had some back and forth with the staff who've sort of pulled back a little bit, but I think we're smoothing out those edges.
I want to play something that your Democratic colleague, Senator Elizabeth Warren, had to say in response to the GOP's $928 billion counteroffer. Here's her take.
I don't really think this is a serious counteroffer. We were in a crisis before the pandemic hit. It only got worse during the pandemic. This is our chance to expand our idea of what infrastructure means.
A couple of sticking points there, and one of them is the most basic, is about the understanding of what infrastructure is. Secretary Pete Buttigieg says it should be all-encompassing, because if people can't work, they can't travel the roads, they can't use infrastructure. How do you guys define this? Can you get to some middle ground on that?
Well, we disagree on the definition of infrastructure, and we've been working with the president to bring it back to the physical core idea of infrastructure that we've worked so well on in the past, whether that's roads and bridges, waterways, ports, lead pipes, transit, airports, and also the new infrastructure, which, you know, is we must have everywhere, a broadband. Those are great categories, I think, that we can work together on. You know, I think it's so easy to say, let's throw everything in. I think that's what the president did initially. Human infrastructure, social infrastructure, great things to talk about, things that we need to address, daycare, senior care, all of those items. But that's not what we consider physical infrastructure on modernizing our transportation system to meet the next century challenges. And that's where I think we need to concentrate our efforts at this point.
Okay, so first of all, a really good sign that Senator Capito was saying that Biden seems to genuinely want to come to a compromise and genuinely wants to come to a bipartisan bill. At the same time, Joe Manchin and top Republicans also genuinely want to make a deal. So this is not just political theater. Also, a little bit misleading, Joe Biden asked her to come with a $1 trillion plan for infrastructure, and they said, here we have it, it's a $928 billion plan, but only $290 billion of that is new funding. So Joe Biden had the meeting. He said, nope, we need $1 trillion in new funding, not just repurposing money from the previous stimulus package, which is what the majority of that offer was. So Joe Biden is essentially sticking to his guns as far as making sure this package has an overall price tag of $1.7 trillion. Now, as Senator Capito pointed out, Republicans do not want to include anything in this bill that is not traditional physical infrastructure. So on your screen, you'll see a list of categories and things that Republicans either agreed or disagreed on. Of course, the blue bars being Democrats and the red bars being Republican. Now, as far as things that Republicans want to completely leave out, that's help for caregivers like elderly care and child care, retrofitting homes for affordable housing, electric vehicles and the electric grid, and even upgrading public schools. They basically want to take all of this out and just solely spend the money on traditional infrastructure like airports, railroads, roads, and bridges. Now, Joe Biden is essentially okay with only including physical infrastructure in this bill, but only if they're still willing to spend the $1.7 trillion. Joe Biden did offer Republicans a deal and a real compromise that has a shot at getting done. Now, in his original offer, Joe Biden wanted to increase the top tax bracket for corporations to 28%. Now, he's willing to not increase it at all and basically leave all of Trump's tax cuts in place from 2017. However, his counteroffer does include a minimum tax bracket of 15% for corporations. Currently, there is essentially no minimum tax for corporations, and that's why you hear on the news that companies like Bank of America or Amazon pay 0% in taxes because they have so many deductions. Biden wants to essentially get rid of this, which would create a minimum tax bracket of 15% for companies, which would lead to hundreds of billions of dollars in additional revenue, which could then be used for infrastructure. It could even be used for more stimulus checks or Social Security benefit increases. So that essentially was Joe Biden's deal. The offer he made to Republicans was to maintain the $1.7 trillion in infrastructure spending, but not increase taxes at all, except for this minimum 15% corporate tax, which honestly is pretty reasonable, guys. I mean, even normal people who make $40,000 a year pay 15% in taxes. I think billion-dollar companies can afford to do this. And guys, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, we still do not have an overall concrete response from Republicans. Will they accept this deal, leading to a bipartisan package, or will they counteroffer with something a little more conservative? However, Mitch McConnell did give a quick response, which kind of let us know which direction he's heading. And he said that he met with Senator Capito after she met with Biden. They spoke about the counteroffer, and generally he's open to the idea. So he is open to accepting Biden's counteroffer. However, he would prefer to stick to a $1 trillion deal and is paid for mostly by repurposing money from the previous stimulus package, as well as increasing the gas tax and increasing tollway taxes, basically meaning that everybody would have to pay for this and not just rich corporations. So basically, Mitch McConnell is leaning towards trying to counteroffer with something similar to $1 trillion and no increased tax for corporations at all, but he is open to Joe Biden's offer, guys. So we are working towards a deal, right? Joe Biden is making a genuine good faith effort to get a deal done with Republicans, and Mitch McConnell is open to this plan. So essentially, we'll have to wait and see how the rest of the Republican Party responds to this deal. Will they unite and get this done on a bipartisan level, or will Democrats be forced to try and get this done through budget reconciliation? Now, speaking of budget reconciliation, a couple of months ago, the Senate parliamentarian told Democrats that they could do 2 more budget reconciliation bills, which essentially allowed them to do 2 more stimulus packages. Now, Biden wanted to use his first one to do this infrastructure bill and the second one to pass the American Families Plan, which would have more direct payments. However, now the parliamentarian is saying that Democrats, in fact, might only be able to do 1 budget reconciliation bill. Now, the final decision still has not been made, but now this is in question, guys, and this is not good news. This is really bad news, because for the longest time, we thought we could do 2 more stimulus packages easily without a single Republican vote. The first one would have been the infrastructure bill, and the second one would have been the American Families Plan. But the Senate parliamentarians said that technically they can do 2 budget reconciliation bills, but they need to have a legitimate reason to adjust the budget, and they cannot merely be doing so to avoid the regular legislative process and just to avoid the filibuster rule. Basically saying that it's going to be a little more tricky to get this done than originally thought, and Democrats are going to have to be very specific as to the wording and why they're going to do 2 budget reconciliation bills. This sets up a situation where if they try and do a second bill, the parliamentarian could challenge them. So because Democrats might only be able to do 1 more budget reconciliation bill, it becomes that much more important to not use budget reconciliation for infrastructure and get it done with Republicans on a bipartisan fashion, if that kind of makes sense. Because if they use budget recon for infrastructure and then the Senate parliamentarian decides they can only do 1 more budget recon bill, well, then the American Families Plan will never happen, right? That kind of makes a lot of sense. So essentially, we really at this point want this to get done on a bipartisan fashion. That way we can save that budget recon for the next stimulus bill. And hey, best case scenario, the Senate parliamentarian still says they're allowed to do 2 more bills, at which point we could have 2 more stimulus packages and not have to waste any of them on an infrastructure bill. So guys, I know that could be a little bit confusing, but I hope it kind of made a lot of sense. But at this point, Biden did offer a new deal to Republicans, which is a genuine compromise, which would keep the 2017 Trump tax cuts in place and simply create a minimum tax for corporations of 15%, which is very fair. So at this point, we're just waiting to see how Republicans respond. Mitch McConnell gave his 2 cents. He's open to the idea, but we'll have to see what the Republican Party says as a whole. So with that said, guys, we should have a lot of updates in the next couple of weeks. Don't forget to subscribe. I will keep you updated on the next 2 stimulus packages, Social Security changes, and daily news updates as well. And again, this first stimulus package will greatly affect the second stimulus package, so it's really important that we follow what exactly is going on. So thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, take care and have a great day.